all.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Play done.
You're very welcome.
Power. Yeah, no voting tonight. Okay, we are recording. We're not quite live on YouTube yet. One more minute. Okay, we are live.
Okay,
Jerry, you can open at any time.
thank you, Virginia. Good evening and welcome to Park Summit special meeting. April 17th, 2022, 7 p.m. In attendance, we have Ms. Lopez. Present. Ms. Zimmerl. Present. Solicitor Hayes. Present. Mr. Jenkins.
Here.
Mr. Mitchell is absent, but he's doing it on Zoom. Mayor Johnson is absent.
Well, he's not mayor. We
Mayor
don't have a
Johnson is
mayor.
on
Oh,
We don't have a mayor right now. That's one of the things we're discussing.
I'm the substitute mayor.
Right.
Mr. Kelly,
Present.
Mr. Shields,
Present.
and our junior council member isn't here.
Wow.
He's late.
He's getting demerits.
He's gonna have to go to detention, I'm afraid.
I'll take care of his parents.
Oh, thank you.
That's okay. So from now on, he's out of here. He's not a junior counselor
Okay.
anymore. Of course, he's not anymore because he's done with school
Oh,
almost.
right, yeah, he graduated, right, in June.
Yeah. Almost there.
The first item on our agenda is our CDBG public hearing, and we have Joe
Robinsky.
Robinsky here to discuss
Is this
this
your
with
pen?
us.
Yes. That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Maybe Council, I'm just on behalf of Lackawanna County to give a presentation of the Community Development Block Grant Program. It's a brief presentation. If there's any questions afterwards, we'd be happy to take them or get them to the correct person who can answer your questions. Lackawanna County Department of Planning and Economic Development is the administrative agency for the CBG program in the county. CBG funds are federal funds from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, which are administered by the PA Department of Community and Economic Development. There are 11 atomic communities, of which Clark Summit is one, and 27 non-atomic communities in Lackawanna County, Pennsylvania. To be considered an atomic community, the community must have a population of 4,000 or more and meet the current minimum standards of physical and economic distress of the Federal Urban Development Action Grant Program. The 2022 allocation is not currently available through DCD, will be provided when available. And as of now, there's currently an estimated $298,000 roughly in money that has to be spent currently that has not been spent on for projects available. So there's roughly $298,000 available that could be spent on CBG projects, not counting 2022 allocation. The objectives of the program are to assist communities in preparing the community development plans designed to address significant needs of low and moderate individuals, to assist communities in administering community development activities designed to address a number of community development needs, identify the community development plan, to encourage and assist communities to focus upon and address housing and community facility problems, and to pursue economic development and commercial revitalization activities through public-private investment initiatives that will result in the development and expansion of job opportunities within the Commonwealth. Some eligible activities include water and sewer improvements, stormwater improvements, street improvements, parks and recreation, and senior center facilities. There's also numerous ineligible activities, which include buildings or portions thereof used for general conduct of government, general government expenses, operating and maintenance expenses, political activities, purchase of construction equipment, purchase of fire protection equipment, purchase of furnishings and personal property, and income payments. For a project to be deemed eligible, it must be one of three national objectives. I'll summarize the three objectives. One is to benefit low to moderate income individuals, prevention and elimination of slums or blight, or to address an immediate threat to the health and safety of the community. Right now, we're soliciting ideas for current projects that can be used for funding. And as I mentioned previously, once we have 2022 allocation, that'll be forwarded to council. So There's a lot more information included that's not really pertinent. Again, we are looking for ideas for projects, and our office asked to reach out to Peg or myself or someone in our office for ideas, and we'll work from there. The most recent one what I did was the elevator project, which was 2 months ago back.
Yes,
And that's all I have. Any questions? I'll take them now.
that was a wonderful project for us to have done though.
Yeah.
because it was overdue.
They're very good. The company I worked with did a really good job with them.
Yes,
So they're very easy to work with.
We certainly appreciated that very much.
So we just have to find the proposals, projects. You just
Yes,
submit the proposals.
yes, with the judges. So obviously we could coordinate with your engineer to see what would be would fit perhaps the one of those 3 objectives. Yes.
And then just send a resolution with the proposal, and that's.
Yes. First we'll go to our office. We cleared that with DCD, then we would go from there with the engineer.
Right, we need to decide this by June 24th, correct?
That's our goal, to get to by June 24th. This way we get the application, and plus get the money that needs to be spent off the books somewhat. So June 24th is our soft but hard. It's our target date for project ideas.
So
Sooner the better.
my suggestion, Madam President, if it's okay, is if everyone takes these home and reads these,
Right.
and then we discuss it at our work session in May and come up with ideas where we have a chance to really think about it. Because we have a lot of ideas, but we really need to be sure that they meet the CDBG objectives and the fundability requirements.
And all of the 298,000 has to be spent by,
No, so no, I can get you the breakdown, but no, that's the total number
Okay.
available right now. Yes.
There's no limit on the proposals. We can bring as long as they're approved.
Yes, lots are approved, yes. Again, 2022 funding, usually it's available by now, but they have not said that's the current allocation yet, so there'll be more money released soon. Thank you. Any questions? And everyone, have a good night. Appreciate it.
There's a lot of information to work with. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe.
Take care.
The next item on our agenda is our mayor candidates. And I see we have 4 of them here tonight. So we'll start with, we're going as far as who sent the resumes in first.
Madam President, I have a suggestion. I don't know. Do we want to maybe sequester the candidates so that, the ones who's like the last candidate would have an opportunity to sort of hear the questions and if it's agreeable to the candidates? I don't know if that's just, we could ask the
That's
purpose of,
true too, yeah.
we just have one at a time, if that's okay with the candidates, or, I mean, you guys.
Absolutely.
I get sequestered in court all the time.
You know the drill then.
I do.
So we want to ask them to step out in the
Yeah,
hall.
maybe we'll just do one at a time if that's
Okay,
okay.
would the 3 of you mind stepping out here?
Should I go through?
Okay, because Harry will be first and then he'll step out when he's done and.
I see. I'm going first. Go through the wall.
Okay. There's a stopper in there.
There's. The walls are thin anyway.
I know. We're not going to talk about Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, Harry,
I
get the
don't
hell
know.
out of here.
I know, my God.
If you ever
Really
met our
nice,
other
Sarah.
council members, Lonnie Lopez,
hello, nice to meet you.
her brother is our junior council member.
I interviewed him for a story.
Yeah.
And Kathleen
You did
Simrall,
too.
Bob Shields,
Thank you.
Dave Jenkins, and our
Hiya.
solicitor, Mary Claire.
And then Harry, when you're done, you can sit down and join
Yeah.
us because you'll have already spoken.
Okay. Sure.
You won't be privileged anymore.
I won't be privileged. I never was.
And
Hello, hi, Harry Kelly, member of council, candidate for mayor. Return.
Exactly.
Part 2, or whatever.
All right, I have a handful of questions. So what I'm going to do is ask each of the candidates the same questions. And then if any other member of council would like to jump in.
Oh, okay, so
Feel
you have,
free.
Mary Claire has questions, okay.
Well, and that way we'll just make it consistent across the
Right.
board.
Good idea.
Throw some big curveballs at me. Are you ready? Can you please begin by sharing your ties to the Clark Summit community with the rest of council?
Oh, I'm here since 1993. I live over on Sturbridge Road. Mrs. Carey was very instrumental in me getting involved years ago with running for office. So she was trying to put together a slate of candidates, and we had an opening for mayor, and I ran that. That's forever ago. It's 2008.
And Harry
Yeah.
knocked on every single door in Park.
That's right. She dragged me.
Yeah.
So that's, and then there was a second term. So I'm trying to think what year it all ended. But anyway, there was 8 years of experience as being there.
Yeah, 8 to 6.
Yeah, 8 years.
2016.
No, I think it was 12. No, I think it was 4. Did you start in 2000?
I ran when Jimmy Gibbons ran. What year was that?
Oh.
2008.
Was that your first term or your second term?
First, yeah.
Oh, okay. And you
Yeah, at the same time when Jimmy Gibbons was running for
2005.
magistrate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right. Okay.
so there's rocks younger than me.
All right, for our second question, can you tell us what prompted you to submit your name for consideration now?
Because of the experience of doing it in the past for 8 years and making a contribution as councilman and the familiar with the vacancy in there. So I thought I'll put my name in. It's up to the council, and if they want me, they did. And if not, they could throw me out the garbage.
So this next question is probably, I think I could probably answer it.
Go ahead.
What about your personal experience would make you the strongest candidate that we have here this evening?
Of my personal, in my life, you mean?
Or professional experience, your
Oh,
past experience?
Wow. Well, in addition to doing the job for 8 years, I'm familiar with well, we had when I was the mayor, the chief at that point in time was Lou Vitale. I worked with Lou. Most of the guys down there, some of the newer guys, I don't know. I know most of them and get along with them. Chris Yards, I dealt with Chris, current chief, and Joe Laguzzi was there. He was the chief also. So I worked with, and he's a part-time guy too, right?
Yes, he is.
So I know most of the guys pretty well. And am I answering the question? I'm trying to think.
Yeah, that's.
Oh. I was wondering if I had some life experience that you're, I don't
You
know.
can share any experience that you'd like to share, but I think
Anything you
you've
think
covered
is
what.
qualification.
What's that?
Anything you think is qualification.
Oh, well, like I said, being familiar with the job and the policemen that work down there and knowing them personally, I think I could be a good fit.
And you've had the experience of working with councils before.
Yes.
And have you given any thought to whether or not you would run for the office after the expiration of the appointed term?
I'm a little confused. I'm glad you brought that up. Now, so now whoever is selected, they will, now, Mr. Johnson was, Mayor Johnson was elected in November to a 4-year term. So,
But that's not how it works.
Yeah.
so now what is the status now? How does it work? now?
That you are, or whoever is appointed
Yeah.
appointed until the next election. The next election, this goes on a ballot for a 2-year term. So the next year, there are going to be elections. And so if you were appointed, you would be appointed through 12/31/23. Then there's going to be elections next year for the remaining 2-year term.
Oh, so they have to be reopened every.
Right.
So primary would be May of 2020.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was actually to fill in the 4-year term. I wasn't quite sure what it
No,
was.
state law says it's only until the next election.
So we-
And then if you're elected from, you would be on for 2 more years, not.
Right.
And then you run for a
Oh,
4-year
I see.
term.
Yeah.
Right.
That was Kirk. I got me there.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else?
I don't have any other questions. If the council is certainly welcome to ask anything
No,
else.
I
I'm
think
I'm
we all
fine.
know your
I'm fine.
I'm fine.
Well, thanks.
One good question.
I'm
So,
fine.
so
Oh,
you were
sorry.
elected 3 times though by the voters in Clark Summit?
Twice,
Twice as
Twice
mayor.
as
and then-
mayor.
And then once as council.
yes.
And what's your ideal, like the perfect mayor? I mean, what if you're mayor, what would you do?
The perfect one, huh? Let's see.
Keep it
Hopefully
clean,
in a
Harry.
town where no crime exists, no speeding, no
Drugs,
drugs, whatever, yeah. Or
everybody's Narcan free.
everybody's in, yeah, that would be nice. That would be the ultimate, but
But you would work with the police department, be involved in the community, or that type of thing.
Well, sure, we would like them involved with the community, yes. And I think in recent times too, I think it would be necessary for the police to reach out to the community, as you say, to create better relations. There is some negativity with people's perception of police, and unfortunately, due to some circumstances that occurred, and yeah, I think it would be a good thing to work on. Yes.
All right, thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Harry.
All right, I'll get out of the room.
No, you can sit.
You're done.
You're done. You're not
Don't
gonna
ask
ask.
any more questions.
And I'll go get Steve.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Harry.
Thank you.
Steve?
Yeah, great years.
They do it right.
Oh, you did. So.
Oh, thanks.
Could have done
Oh,
There's-
You can take the podium
Yeah.
here.
Oh, okay.
podium mine, Steve, thank you.
Not a problem.
Steve, everybody has a copy of Steve's resume. Our solicitor, Mary.
Please introduce yourself if you would, for the people who don't know you.
Sure. My name's Steve Guza. I'm a resident here of Clark Summit for the last 18 years. Live over on Maple Avenue. I previously served on the Shade Tree Commission here in the borough. That was pretty early on in my time here. And it was a new committee at that point in time. I've also served on the Abington Community Library Board as well. So community service is something that I find important.
Steve, thank you. You've already answered my first question, which was to share your ties to the Clark Summit community. And you've touched on the second question, but I'll just ask you more specifically if you could tell us if there was something in particular that prompted you to submit your name for consideration.
I would say yes. I've always had a desire to want to be involved. It's just timing never seemed to be right. Whether I thought I was too young to get involved at some times, then had a young family, a new move into a community, and then have always followed things as far as politics are concerned. And just feel that there's nothing more that anyone can do than to give back to the community in which they live in.
And could you share with us, what is it about your either personal or professional background or experience that you think would make you the strongest candidate that we're seeing here tonight?
Up until the pandemic, I ran my own insurance business. I was an agent with New York Life. Of course, there were other agents there, but as an agent, you're really your own manager, your own boss. You need to be able to take care of things and do things in a way so that you're able to provide and take care of the needs at hand.
And so the appointment for mayor at this point, the individual appointed will serve through December 31st of 2022. And there will be an election, which would have a primary next spring. Have you given any consideration as to whether or not you would seek election beyond that appointed term?
Yes, I would.
Any other council members have any more questions?
Steve, what's it in your mind? What do you think the most important responsibilities or duties of the mayor of Clark Summit are?
I would say being there to listen to the people. You're working for the people. Sometimes I think that aspect can get lost in public service. We get very comfortable and maybe prideful at times. And I think you can sort of see that on a higher level of government. And Jerry and I had talked about it a little bit at the after mass one day. And I said, the nice thing with local government is that it's the community in which you live. And you want to do the best for everybody, whether it's Democrat, Republican, or independent, whoever it may be. You're there to answer the needs of all the people of the community.
One follow-up question. One of the primary responsibilities of the mayor is to work with the police department. Do you have, how do you feel about that? And what do you think are important issues for the police and the community?
As far as my background with the police department, I will be perfectly honest, I don't have any police background or anything like that. I'm willing to get any kind of training that would be available. I think our police today have a very tough job that they need to deal with each and every day, as we can pretty much see in the news, as to the struggles that they're having. So it definitely need to be there for the police, and we would be more than willing to work along with them and be an advocate for them.
All right, thank you so much, Steve.
You wrote in your letter of interest that you worked in a variety of governmental positions in New York City. What were some of those positions?
It's not me.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Oopsie.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
I don't have my Bible.
Does anybody
No
else have any
questions.
questions for Steve? Thank you, Steve, for your interest and for coming in, and we'll let you know. once we make our
We'll be
decision.
voting next week because we don't vote at our work sessions. Steve, it's your choice. You're welcome to sit and participate with witness the rest of the interviews and then participate in the meeting or not. There's no obligation either way.
Okay.
Okay.
No problem. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
We vote get Gary.
Yes.
That's the next one.
I was gonna say, talking to Gary out there, I used to mentioning New York, but Sophie Bob said a lot, but that's a long time ago. Okay.
Hi there. Gary, if you would introduce yourself to council and our solicitor.
Gary Rosman. Nice meeting.
And we all have Gary's resume. And our solicitor, Mary Claire Hayes, is going to be doing our questioning.
Good evening, Gary. I just have a handful of questions for you, and then council members may have some additional questions beyond that.
Please.
But just to start out, can you share your ties to the Clark Summit community with us?
Sure. My family and I recently have relocated. It was a COVID-related move. My parents have retired to the Poconos, and we are new parents ourselves and wanted our son to be near grandma and grandpa. And we, in researching, in addition to wanting to be close to family, decided that quality of life was a main factor. And we weighed the pros and cons. Clark Summit won out on top. There was really not even a close second, and we're grateful every day for the decision we made. I've been fortunate enough to take part in a number of community-related endeavors, such as my work with the Abington Community Library. I also volunteer on the PTA at Clark Summit Elementary. In fact, we have, if I may digress slightly, we have a visit to this chamber
Monday.
on Monday, May 2nd. I want to extend my appreciation to everybody who will make it here for doing that, because I think it'll be very special for the kids.
Yeah,
So
that's why I didn't call you back, because I figured I
we're
would
gonna
let
see each
you
other
know
here.
tonight that we can accommodate that for Monday. So
Yep, we're all
that would
set.
be fine.
Thank you. I think civics education is woefully underrepresented in our local curriculum. So I'm so happy to be able to do this and for your taking your time. I also serve, I've been asked to serve on the board of the JCC in Scranton. This is through work I've done with them on their summer camp committee. I have, I'm here. I guess this is my connection to this community, a desire to serve. I like, I have a house, I have a roof over my head, my son is well fed. At this point, now that my needs are met, I'd like to reach out and see what I can do for others. That's sort of why I'm here. It's to continue to forge the relationship that I think you're speaking of.
And I think you just answered my second question, which would be, can you tell us what prompted you to submit your name for consideration?
That's it in a nutshell. basically. I've been in public service all my life. My professional life sort of went on a bit of a hiatus. The pandemic came along with our adoption being finalized. One parent was required to be stay at home as a sort of a factor of the adoption. So I take a back seat, a step back from work, but Devon has made some incredible strides, and he's in school. Again, the very capable educational institutions here in Abington Heights Community in the school district have done wonders. And so now my time's a little bit more freed up, and this is something that I would very much like to undertake.
That's wonderful. And could you share what about your own experience, be it personal or work, you think would make you the best candidate before us here tonight?
Oh, well, yeah, sure. I think I mentioned in that letter that by far and large, my professional experience is in municipal government. So I worked for the Parks Department in New York for almost 20 years. The best time I had in my life. I don't need to tell you all that oftentimes a person's interactions with the government, with law enforcement or officialdom is often because something has gone wrong. But the Parks Department was incredible because people actually wanted to come. We were providing services that people were eager to take advantage of, and it made going to work every day. It made me feel good to be able to do that also within the department, because this was the largest city agency. We're talking about 10,000 people. The largest landholder within the 5 boroughs. I think something like 15% of the square footage of New York fell under the Parks Department's jurisdiction. So the tasks were various and plentiful. I did everything from environmental interpretation as a park ranger, facilities management as the director of our headquarters building in Central Park. I was in charge of the training division, where we did everything for our employees from horticulture and landscaping classes to driving safety and business writing and CPR and first aid. I don't want to bore you with all the things I did, but suffice it to say, I think primarily my experience in government would come from those years that I actually worked for government.
Yeah, it sounds like you had a positive experience.
I did at that.
Very good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, the individual who's appointed to serve out this particular term will serve until December 31st of 2023. So there will be an election actually next year in May for a primary. Have you given any thought as to whether or not you would seek election beyond the appointed term?
I have not given any thought. I am not opposed to it. I imagine that would, I imagine the next year and a half would decide whether or not this position is suitable enough for me to try to pursue, my own term on my own basis through the voting process. I did run. I was encouraged and ran for school board in Abington Heights. So I enjoyed the process. It was my first time. I was not elected, but I enjoyed meeting the voters and canvassing, and so I guess it remains to be seen. I'd like not to think about that far off point at this moment in time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does any of the council members have any questions?
Yes, Gary, it's very impressive that you've thrown yourself into community service so quickly since moving to the area. If you become mayor, what do you think would be your top priorities or things you would want to address as mayor?
It would be a tough balancing act in that I would want to, as faithfully as possible, dovetail with former Mayor Johnson's vision. I would be serving somebody else's term, and I would like to follow through on initiatives that he might have had. Having said that, I would like to engage with the voters and see what it is that they would like me to pursue. One of the benefits of having somebody newer in the community serve is that they're kind of a clean slate, and they can take on the projects that they feel are relevant in the here and now. and not something that maybe they've had rattling around in their mind and bring to the table. I have some personal passions, for example. When I lived in Minnesota, another chapter of my life, engaged with the city as much as I'm doing now. And I was actually part of a delegation that was sent to the city's, it was called Bemidji, sister city in Italy, a town called Filatrano, where was interred an Italian explorer who 200 years ago tried to find the headwaters of the Mississippi River. County Bemidji is now named after him, Beltrami County, an Italian name for the decidedly un-Italian part of our country. It's a long story. A cousin of mine invited me to a wedding in Tuscany, and the dates just happened to work out, but I was able to go on a sort of an ambassadorial mission. That's something I would love to do for Clark Summit. I'm not going to try to pronounce the name of the town in Wales, because I'll butcher it.
Yeah.
I'm Welsh and I can't pronounce it. And I've been to Wales. But
I
I agree with you. The name is too many letters in the alphabet.
One of the kids who are coming on Monday, in future weeks, one of the things I would love to do with them, we're studying civics together, is to maybe engage in a pen pal program with elementary school children in that community. So that's something I would love to do. I know it's not exactly, pressing governmental matters, but just off the top of my head, that I would love to do some of those kinds of projects that shine a positive light on Clark Summit.
One quick follow-up, Gary.
Yeah.
One of the responsibilities of the mayor is they work pretty closely with the police department.
Yes.
How would you feel about that? And do you have any ideas on how you would want to handle the police department in the community?
I feel fine. I would want to engage with them and with every other stakeholder in the community. I have no issues. Once upon a time, I was in law enforcement myself. As a park ranger, you have to be deputized as a special patrolman for the state of New York. So I know I'm not exactly a crime fighter. I think I once assisted on a summons for a horse and buggy going the wrong way on a drive, but I understand that keeping people safe is arguably the top priority for any municipal government, and I would want very much to work with the police department in any way I'm able to better serve the citizens and residents of Clark Summit. I know that there is the talk of consolidation. I'm not because I have not extensively studied the issue. I'm not able to say what would be the better route to take, but I would take it upon myself to find out and form an opinion and try to work to make that happen.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I just have one comment. You said you didn't want to bore us. Your experience was not boring at all.
You're very kind.
Honestly.
Thank you so much and for this
you.
opportunity just to speak with you all.
Thank you.
Gary, you're welcome to sit and witness the remaining interview. Stay and then for the meeting if you want, or you're welcome to leave. There's no obligation.
My son is just on the other side of this wall and probably getting a little antsy for supper. Yeah.
Yes.
So if it's okay, if I, without giving offense, if I have to, if I
Absolutely.
take my leave.
Yep.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Come back anytime.
I'll see you on Monday. Please tell former Mayor Johnson I sent my best wishes.
I absolutely will, Gary, and then I will touch base between now and Monday to let us know, roughly how many you think will be coming and any council members that can make it. We'll have an agenda set up so they'll know exactly how we run our council meetings.
Much obliged.
And also the council have a policeman come out and we'll talk to them too.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay.
Nice boy.
Thank you. Thank you.
So now you're the babysitter out there, right?
I
raised a couple of them.
On Monday.
Monday after.
But you wish they had a boy though.
Monday.
No,
you
know what? I would
If
say
anybody's
this.
around and wants to join us, we're just right here.
Okay.
Everyone asked me when my daughters were born,
Yeah.
if I wished I had a son,
Right.
and I only wished that they had 5 fingers on each
That's right.
hand, 5 toes, and that they were healthy. I did
That's
not
exactly.
care what their gender was.
Exactly.
And raising daughters was a trip. Living in a house with all those women.
Yeah.
How many bathrooms do you have, Bob?
Unfortunately, it took a long time, but we finally got two.
That's the important thing.
Okay, well, I don't think you need any introduction. I think everybody.
No, everybody knows who I am. I don't think everybody knows me, but everybody knows who I am.
Was there anything you want us to know about you that we may not know for this process?
I like puppies. Walks. No, I'm.
I have a few basic questions that I've asked the other individuals, so I'll just go ahead and ask you those, and anything you want to expand upon, just feel free to share with everybody here. So if you want to just start by talking about your ties to the Clark Summit community.
Well, I'm what they call a local. Well, I'm not a native being born here. But we've been here 30 some odd years. I worked in the police department for 31 years, except for the last 6 months. I didn't work very much. Well, I broke my jaw. So, I didn't break it. And I raised 2 daughters in the Abington High School District. And I was telling the other fellow,
Mr. Rosman?
yes, I was telling him that when I was offered a job here, I was also offered a job in Scranton. And the people at Scranton, I asked them, like, well, how long do I have to make up my mind? And they said, we're on the phone now. Well, Clark Summit was going to consolidate, so I figured there'd be the depth of field would be to go and have a deep bench in Clark Summit. But my wife said, there is no way in heck we're going to live and my kids are going to the Scranton School District. There is no way. And if you look at the Scranton School District, she's right.
And there the decision was made.
For me, but I didn't mind because I wanted to do the job. Before that, I was an inventory control manager. And before that, before I came down here, I was a production manager. So I had some background in administration and numbers and stuff like that. But I wanted to do this job. And the reason I wanted to do this job is because I didn't really like cops. I had a lot of experience with them growing up. We'll just leave it at that. But it wasn't that I didn't like the work. It's that I didn't like the way people were doing it. A lot of police officers, and certainly not a majority, but maybe more in the olden days, a lot of police officers think that having a badge and a gun and being on the street is power.
Yeah.
I always thought it was a responsibility. And I don't think you'll find anybody that I have ever dealt with, whether I arrested them or they were a victim that I helped, that said I treated them in a condescending or poor manner, because they're people. And I think that people need to be treated like people. So I think it's a very important job that I just finished. I just think that you need the right people doing that job with the right attitude. And that's how I came to work. If you want to know the absolute turn of the moment when I decided I wanted to do this, was I worked at a campus in upstate New York. And they had a policy that all suicides had to be transported off campus with an officer. And I had this girl who had just tried to kill herself, who had compresses on her arms. And I told her the worst jokes. And she was laughing by the time we got to the ER. And anybody could have done what I did, which was pick her up and get her there.
Right.
But I don't think anybody could have made her laugh.
Yeah.
You know, and I told her, I remember exactly what I said, because she was laughing. And I said, you know what I love about this job? They never asked me to get a driver's license. And she's in the back of my car with these compresses on, you know. So anyway, I think that's what you have to bring. And you also saw my letter, as far as my experience in law enforcement. But it's really about the people. And the mayor's in charge of the police department. And I can think of a couple of things that I would like to see a little bit differently. And I'll give you just one example. When you all were getting ready to vote on the body cameras,
Right.
it was my suggestion that you wait, because we knew grants were coming.
Right.
And you waited and you got grants.
Right. Right.
It was, and by the way, I have brought that up in the past.
Right.
but I apparently never made it to this floor. So, I mean, that's the kind of thing, a little bit more deliberative. I don't want to be the chief. I was the chief. I was the OIC 3911. Let me tell you, it was really bad. Working with people and with the union, middle management is tough. If I wanted to do the job, I wouldn't retire.
Bob, now that you've wrapped up the law enforcement portion of your career, can you share what it is that prompted you to submit your name for our consideration, for council's consideration?
Well, I just touched on part of it. I think that the job can be done a little bit differently. Not a whole lot differently, but a little bit differently. I think you need that the mayor needs to pay a little more attention. Listen, I'll be honest with you, I'm not gonna make a park.
Right.
I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna go out and dig flowers or put up a monument. That's not anything that's within my skill set. But I think that providing the services to the community in the way that the community wants, not in the way that so-and-so thinks it should be done, is a feedback loop. And I think I'm pretty good at communicating. I think I'm pretty good at getting my points across. I think I've always been pretty much approachable. So when it comes to the important things about being the mayor, it's listening to people, making adjustments or not making adjustments. I think everyone is entitled to an explanation.
Sure.
Even if the answer is no, you're still entitled to an explanation as to why. I can't do that. I don't think that's something that's been missing, but I think it's something I'm good at.
And do you think, are those qualities what you would describe as what would make you the best candidate before us tonight?
Well, I don't know what everybody else's qualifications are. I certainly, I'll put it this way, when you go shopping for a car, there's lots of cars on the lot. You buy the one that suits you. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with that car. And so that's kind of how I look at my being here tonight. Car's a bad analogy, I guess, my other time, but you know what I'm saying. You know, it's a question of what you people want from a mayor. I mean, the mayor is the figurehead. The mayor is not part of the deliberative body. The mayor breaks ties. When's the last time a mayor did a wedding?
Patty.
Patty, how many?
I've done, I have done weddings, not in a long time though.
Yeah, I see the requests come and go. And the answer is always no. Now, and I respect the basis for that no. But I think if you're a resident and you want the mayor to marry you, I think that shouldn't be no. Regardless of your persuasions or your biases. I personally think that's the law, that's the way the world is. If you're going to serve the public, you have to serve the public outside of what your personal biases, prejudices, religious beliefs, or otherwise. Otherwise, why are you going to be a public servant? What's the point? I mean, you could be a Republican, you could be a Democrat, you could be a libertarian, you could be a Catholic, a Presbyterian, or a Jewish person. Has nothing to do with government. That's the way that it was set up. And I think it was unfortunate that there weren't a whole lot of weddings.
Of the people, by the people, and for the people.
And if you want to be mayor, that's all of the people.
There it is.
All of it.
So,
Now, Bob, the appointment that we're considering now is for approximately the next year and a half. It would be through the end of December 2023. Is this a position that you would see yourself being interested in beyond that? Would you anticipate attempting to run for office beyond the appointed?
I don't have real big political aspirations and I'm getting old. I don't know what I will feel like in a year and a half. I have ideas. I am in favor of the consolidation. I came here because of consolidation. Peg O'Connor appointed me to the original consolidation board. You appointed me to the last consolidated regionalization board. That's a process that's going forward that I am very much in favor of. I certainly have a good insight into how the labor works downstairs. There haven't been any grievances. There haven't been any problems. I get along pretty well with the union. They're a part of the process. They're not the process. The people are the process. And I think one of the reasons that I succeeded in my position downstairs in labor was because I understand that it's not about them. It's about fair. And fair is outside of the association of the union too. Fair is about what's good for the taxpayers. And I think my service on the pension board shows that. We brought that pension board up. I have a lot of experience working with the numbers and working with the governmental regulators. But it was always fair. Nobody ever walked away feeling like they got done dirty or had put over on them. I think that's an important part of being a mayor. I think not being part of the deliberative process gives a mayor more freedom because there are no political aspirations.
I don't know if any members of council have any additional questions for you.
Mr. Sedlock, so prior to becoming a police officer, you worked with numbers and administration, correct?
Yes, I was a plant manager for the 5th largest ceramics company of its kind in the world. But when I came down here, I worked for A-Band. Have you ever seen A-Band? In the back of the cement, I was their inventory control manager.
How,
And- Well, while I was working here, I took my generic job skills of inventory control from production when I worked for the ceramics industry. It's applicable to clothing. Inventory is inventory is inventory. I picked up that job here as part of my generic job skills. And I was in charge of the inventory and data control.
and how long do you serve as a police officer?
Here, 31 years.
December the 10th. That's my birthday.
Really?
Yes, it is.
I was talking to someone who used to work here. He was hired on Pearl Harbor Day.
Oh, really? Oh, okay, well, I'll never forget the date that you started here in
Well, I
Florida.
didn't know that.
Yeah,
Did you
yeah.
have any concerns? I mean, I know you just retired in January 1st, coming back as mayor so soon, or do you think that would be a benefit, or do you, would it be difficult?
Well, I think I'm current. Concerns? No, I don't have any concerns. I think that, as I said before, I tend to watch things. I tend to try and follow the trends, anticipate. And I do that professionally and personally. I don't play the stock market, but I am on the pension board.
Right.
No, I'm not lying around watching The View in the morning for 25 words or less, but there was a period, since you mentioned it, that there wasn't a lot I could do. But I'm getting better every day. I had this horrible titanium piece in my jaw that goes from the tip of my ear to there, and they cut the nerve endings in my face when they put the jaw. It was the 3rd surgery. So that's why I grew the goatee. It's not really my style. I didn't suddenly go to seed when I left, But a lot of people like it, and until I could shave again. But I would be kind of laying back, but no, I have no concerns about doing something. I will eventually do something anyways.
So you got something against beards?
I simply said it's not my style. Let's go back to, as a return, the car. You're just a car with a beard.
He's coming at us, Mr. Jenkins.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
If I could shave it off, I probably would, but a lot of people seem to like it now. They say it makes me look friendly. I never thought I looked unfriendly. I always thought I was a warm fuzzy.
I'm simply enjoying looking at your eyes, which I never had the opportunity to do when you were in uniform, because you always had those sunglasses on. So
Never at night.
now, look, I never really saw you out at night. I thought you were, one of those people that only came out during the daytime.
The late Tony Perry used to refer to me as Hollywood.
I've heard that.
Or Hollywood.
I've heard that.
Because I wore sunglasses. all the time.
Right, yeah.
The little known secret is I was a migrator.
Oh, okay.
Well, that explains a lot then.
Sure does, yes.
And there's
it
a
does.
reason behind everything.
I never bought good sunglasses, though. I should have styled a little more.
LL Bean. They got the best.
Ray-Bans.
They got
Ray
the
Bans, yeah, that's in the
Yeah.
Beatles album. But anyway, yeah, that's why I always wore the sunglasses. Wicked migraines for years and years and years. And then
That's good.
I was always mad at my mother because they said that you get them from your mom. No, that you get that gene from the female side of the family. But then when I brought it up to her, she said, well, I'll tell you what, mine went away with menopause. And I don't get that. So, but they did go away.
That's
But
good.
that was the reason for the sunglasses.
All right.
Does
Very
anyone else
good.
have any other questions?
Okay,
I
any
do
other
not.
questions for Dr. Shedlock? Well, we thank you for your strong interest in
Well, I thank you for the opportunity to
Absolutely.
stand up here and talk about used cars and Dave's Beard.
Bob, we've told all of our candidates, you're welcome to stay if you'd like. You do not need to. It's up to you.
What are we doing?
Well, now we're going into our regular
Now we're
council.
gonna
meeting.
finish the meeting.
Oh, it's a work session, isn't
There
it?
you
Yeah.
go.
And
Yep.
and you're not voting tonight.
We're not gonna vote.
Until next
Right.
week.
That's what I was, Virginia told me that. When she asked me, what does your wife think? What does your wife
Why do we always ask you that question?
Probably because she's tough as nails.
Because we know who wears the pants in that house.
I have no, listen, I'm from a matriarch. I have 4 sisters. And then my mother. So and then I live with 3 women. I love to say that to people. I lived with 3 women for years. 2 of them were my daughter, 1 of them was my wife. But, you know, so I'm used to people, women telling me what to do. And I'm also used to giving them my money. I don't want much except peace and quiet.
No matter what it costs, right?
Money's irrelevant if you're not
That's
happy.
right, that you're exactly right.
Look at Johnny Depp suing his ex for $50 million. He doesn't look very happy,
No, that's for sure.
and he's got lots of money.
God, yeah.
Well, no, but thank you for the opportunity to speak to you all and for reading my letter. And
Very good.
Sure.
I think
Thanks,
I'll-
Bob.
I'll probably go home and keep it trim, look sharp.
Absolutely.
Go for that Santa Claus thing, man. I'm gonna.
Got
Yeah.
3 suits at home. You wanna borrow one? That's all right.
All right, thank you so much.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Bob. Thank you.
Thanks for coming in, Bob. Bye-bye.
Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Bye, Steve.
Take care.
Take care. We'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is our public comment.
Since we only have Brooke here, I don't think we have public comment.
Comment
Moving right along.
There we go, a little blessing in disguise. All right, the next one is the Mr. and Mrs. Walsh request.
They're the residents that asked about no parking in front of their house on Clark Avenue.
Right.
Since we met last, the engineer did go out and review Clark Avenue. She said we could handle the parking issue a number of different ways. I mean, if the concern was safety coming down the hill,
Sure.
and having people parked on the right when there was a blind spot, we could put warning signs. If we did feel that limiting parking was more appropriate, she did make recommendations about street signage and said that would be definitely one of the options for handling that issue. Obviously, parking, where no parking there has to be legitimate reasons for it.
Sure.
And there is an argument from, the engineer said there is an argument there.
So what do you think would be the least intrusive and the least expensive to the borough for the neighbors? Would that be the
Signage.
signs? If the signs didn't work, we can always go back. to
Put up a
ordinance.
handicap sign. What are they, 25,
wanna-
30
Well,
bucks?
handicap sign requires an ordinance,
That does
Yeah, right.
require the.
which
ordinance.
requires Mary Claire's time
To do
writing
it,
it, then advertising it before we vote
So
on it.
just what, no parking signs
No,
or
right now,
limited day parking or
right now the issue, we cannot change parking without an ordinance.
same thing?
If we're concerned, though, that there's a safety issue, we
Yeah.
can put it signage warning that there is a blind hill and, that people should slow down going into it. And until we have, documentation of accidents, that would cover us for safety.
And I do want to help the Walshes, but I also want to be fair to the business because I don't want to take away from the business either. That wouldn't be fair to them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I would feel that the warning sign would be sufficient to get us started on it,
Mhm.
since there are no accidents or anything that we can really justify it. with.
But I initially thought when they came in here that the request for a handicap sign would have only been to punish the business.
Yeah, I did.
And I really felt that that was a misuse of the handicap parking area.
Right.
I mean, it's one thing if you're handicapped,
Right,
okay? They have placards, they have license plates, signage,
sure.
but, like when they came in and they explained everything, they have driveway accessibility
Oh, definitely.
and they
yeah.
have, unlimited basically in their own driveway. Well, what do you want to put a handicap sign out there for?
Right.
I just felt it was a catch-22, and we were kind of stuck in the middle. But I didn't want to really go for the handicap sign because you keep that for people who really need it.
Right,
You
and
know,
I didn't know if there was an underlying medical reason that they
Well,
really, but.
And see, you're limited to what you can ask,
Right,
because God forbid you offend somebody in their question.
right,
However, they're coming to us to ask for the unreasonable request, you know,
That's right.
and that's really like, we're supposed to be the watchdog and say, you know, aye, yes or no. So like, we really need to have a good idea what we're doing. So
So you.
I have no problem with the signage, but
Okay.
I just want it
Just
to
go
be
with
the right
warning
signage.
sign for
Let's start
now.
with warning signs about the hill, and if there's an issue going forward, we'll address it for safety reasons. Okay?
How will the signage read? What kind of, I'm confused on what
The
kind of a warning
engineer
sign.
had verbiage, and I apologize, but it was something like dangerous hill, blind spot ahead, something like that.
Please no parking or?
No, it has nothing to do with parking. It just warned, instead of the drivers not being able to park there because
Excuse me.
the drivers have a blind spot and
Yeah.
could hit them. Instead, we're warning the drivers that there's a danger ahead and they should slow down.
And that was
So
one of
that'll,
the-
I'm sorry, but
Oh, sorry.
that'll be coming down the hill.
Correct.
That was one of the concerns, is because they had guests over, they were older, and they were getting dropped off or something
Right.
at the front of the house.
Right.
That's why they wanted to have the space, so they could be able to drop them off quickly.
Right. This is not addressing what the Clarks want, but one of the arguments was safety. And if we want to address safety, signage should be enough to do it.
Walsh,
The Walshes.
you said
Yes.
Clark's.
Oh, I'm sorry, Clark Ave.
Okay, all right.
The Clark Ave
Yeah,
residents.
okay, all
Okay,
right.
all right, so then I'll handle the signage and we'll follow and see what happens.
Okay, that sounds fine. Thank you, Virginia. Next one is our noise ordinance.
And so, as everybody knows, the issue has been raised again about potentially implementing a noise ordinance.
Right.
What I provided, and I apologize for the timing of it, I had an initial draft, and then earlier today provided what I would just describe as a more streamlined draft. There's nothing in this that's not in the original longer one, just took out some language that
Less
seems
words.
Okay.
maybe less words.
Yeah.
May have been superfluous. So I still think what this does is addresses issues of noise. It does not deal with anything that would have to be read by a decibel reader. It's still a reasonable person standard.
Yeah.
And if council is inclined to implement this, and I think it would cover any potential issues.
Right.
A couple of questions that have been raised to me since our last meeting that I would address are whether or not there's other statutes or sort of tools that police officers can use instead of a noise ordinance. And the answer to that is sort of yes and no. Like, for example, police officers obviously can make an arrest for disorderly conduct. So is that something, are we duplicating what can be done with that? And my personal answer to that would be no, because disorderly conduct is inherently in a public place. You can be disorderly in your own home if you want to, barring certain things. So
Sure.
it doesn't really speak to the same type of conduct.
Right.
Something else that was raised was, could police officers utilize the harassment statute instead of a noise ordinance? And my answer to that would also be no, because harassment contemplates specific intent to harass one certain individual. And that's not necessarily what's going on when we're talking about noise disturbances amongst neighbors. It could be just ignorance to what they're doing, or it could be they don't care who they're bothering, but they're not necessarily seeking to harass one particular neighbor by making noise. So I don't know that there's anything that would speak to the same type of conduct that we already have,
Right.
that it wouldn't necessarily be duplicating that, but I'm open to any other questions that anyone has or
Sure.
anything that I could help clarify.
I'm fine with the way that the
I am
second one
too,
was.
but-
I think we can put it on
Actually,
the menu and.
We'll
I-
go to advertise it.
I had an opportunity to speak with Chief Yarns. He had some suggestions and some things that we went over. I guess the kind of, the old ordinance had some language in there and it was very broad. It's very subjective. There's no objective test, there's no machines, there's no firm noise limits or anything like that. Can we have something in there maybe where the police have to give a warning before they would cite somebody under this ordinance? And also, I think one of the things is, if you may have somebody who is very prone to like certain noises, like I'm sure the borough has had people in the past, children, maybe an older person, they could be offended by that, barking dogs, things like that. And even during the middle of the day, if you read this ordinance, somebody could be cited for that. And at the end of the day, children are going to be children, they're going to make noise, dogs are going to bark. So I would just be very wary of having an ordinance that's not just very subjective, because you want, and I also would want to have maybe two people complaining about it, not just one person.
Right.
Because if you have one person, it could be a personal matter between neighbors. Neighbors, some for whatever reason, can be petty. And then sometimes when neighbors, they do things that are spiteful to each other and they don't want to work together. It's kind of a sad commentary.
Yeah.
But I think if
That
you have two people who have an issue, I think that gives a lot of credibility. Because eventually you're gonna have to enforce this. And it's gonna be, Clarksville police officers are gonna have to fine people. And fines are pretty stiff. They can be up to $1,000 and they're gonna have to go in front of the magistrate. And frankly, the magistrate, if the law is written and it's very subjective, it may not be enforced. And if the police officers go in front of the magistrate and they're not able to carry the day, you're gonna have an ordinance that's gonna be like Swiss cheese, a lot of holes in it. And our police officers are gonna lose their credibility in front of the magistrate. And I don't think that's something they don't want to happen.
We did have an issue a couple of years ago where one guy complained about his neighbors playing basketball. We did have an issue of that came up that we were trying to figure out the best way to handle it. And it eventually it got handled without our intervention. But there was a problem, and it was like a ridiculous thing. A guy complained about his neighbor's kids playing basketball. Well, they're kids.
I think that an ordinance needs that reasonable person clause in there, because in that case, I am certain that gentleman was truly disturbed.
Oh, yeah.
I think that he probably had a sensitivity.
Yeah.
And I also had dealt with another resident over in the Sheridan Earl area, the same thing years ago, where he was bothered by noises that other people really weren't hearing.
Yeah.
And I think it was just a sensitivity issue.
Sure.
We can't accommodate everybody's sensitivities.
Yeah.
We need to have a reasonable person clause, but
Sure.
we should be able to say this is beyond reason and allow, do some enforcement.
Because every resident in the borough has the right to enjoy their property and not have loud noises at the wrong time. And it's just a sad commentary that people can't work together, but
Right.
we have to step in. Having an ordinance isn't the worst thing, it just has to be done the right way, not a lot of subjective loopholes in it.
Okay, so just a couple of things to address your comment, Bob. I think that our police officers always have discretion, when they're on scene as to whether or not they're going to make an arrest, as to whether or not they're going to cite. But I could certainly look at something that's more explicit in here, which speaks to their discretion or the reasonableness, or the fact that they have the ability to give a warning the first time something happens. And I could also put language in here regarding the fact that if 2 or more people complain, then that is.
I think it would be a mandatory warrant. A warning would be good. And then having 2 or more people.
That the first penalty is.
Well, no, we just would give them a
or not
verbal,
penalty, but-
maybe give them a written warning or something like that people don't do that again.
And then what kind of response time do they have? Immediately? or-
Immediately, yeah.
Okay.
As long as you give them one warning and say, you know what,
Okay.
your neighbor doesn't want your dog barking, or the kids are an issue or something like that. As long as you give people a heads up that there's an issue, and if they don't address it, if they don't act the right way, then you can cite them.
Well, what I could do instead of recirculating the large document and then you're looking for it, is suggest a couple of clauses that I could include in an email, and then where I would add them in. That way you could see, does this language speak to whatever it is that the concerns are?
Yeah, when I spoke with Chief Yorns, he said he thought that most of his police officers, the younger ones, they would always give a warning. But his concern was that neighbors may go to the ordinance and say, why are you not citing it?
Right.
I really like the idea along the same thing for the at least 2 complaints, because we deal with this. Like, I have a resident who is calling us constantly because their neighbor is revving their car going up the driveway purposely to harass them.
Yeah.
Oh, and
I think we heard it at the last meeting.
Yes, we did.
Yes.
What do we do? You know,
Right.
but if there's two people, if they're so obnoxious that the neighbors in general are complaining as opposed to just one,
Right.
then there's a legitimate thing, but otherwise, but that's also something I can fall back on. If I receive the complaint, I can say, until we get at least two people complaining, we can't do anything. It covers me.
Okay, then I'll draft a
And the
clause
chief.
and then see if you like that language, and then if it's agreeable with everybody, then we can add that.
We'll get that before next Wednesday.
I disagree with the two people. So,
Well, the fact that it would be, what,
Yeah, because it could be that the one person, it could be that when you're at home, you hear certain things that are going on with the guy on the other side of me. And when I come home and you go to work, I don't hear them. But then when I go to work the next day, you hear the noises and you're still hearing them and they're aggravating you, but I don't hear them,
Dave, I have an alternative
you
suggestion,
know?
because what we could have is two people or one person and a police officer that arrives on the scene.
That's fine. Yeah,
Just as.
yeah, because I mean, our officers are sworn public servants. I mean,
That's the one thing, we've had noise problems in the past, we've been able to
yeah,
survive
oh,
that.
absolutely.
And Chief Yarn said the one thing he doesn't like doing, and this is sometimes happens to him, is the police will come onto the scene. They'll have a neighbor who says, you know, I'm having problems with this person. They keep, and I guess his suggestion sometimes is keep a log,
Yeah.
like see if people, how many times they do it.
Exactly.
And they can keep evidence and then they can go in front of the district justice and the neighbor can testify.
Sure.
But a lot of times neighbors doesn't really want to testify against his neighbor. They want the policeman to do the work for them.
Exactly.
And at the end of the day, he said, I can't testify.
It's a he said, she said.
Right,
Yeah.
and the district justice kind of caught in the middle, and the
Yeah.
district justice looks at him and says, you know, where's your witness, where's your test
Mhm.
evidence? So I think that's why he thought having two residents, just in case one doesn't show up, would be a good idea.
I would be fine with the resident and a police officer doing the witnessing. That's, that makes
We
sense.
should have two
That's what his suggestion was,
residents.
to have two residents, because
Because could the police officer that?
he doesn't want to be
well,
there to
I'm
testify.
only
He's not
one
a neighbor.
opinion, Jerry, so.
Yeah.
I can tell you,
Yeah.
I've seen that language in ordinances, but when I've seen it, I've always seen it or, which would
Okay.
be.
The police
an
officer
alternative.
or
Yeah,
the
so-
residents.
Yeah.
Right,
Right.
so.
Yeah.
But I'll,
Well, you could make it that way too, / and or.
right,
And Chief Harms will be here next week for the, you know, he can-
Provide us-
yeah, his
And we're
opinion.
only voting on what to advertise,
So
so
we
we
can always
can
vote.
decide that next week, having the week to think about it.
Oh, we're not gonna
Absolutely.
decide on the ordinance itself. We're gonna,
Next week, we'll decide how we want it written so that it'll be advertised,
Okay.
because we have to have a final document to advertise
Okay.
if we're gonna vote to.
this
to
is
open it.
not the final.
No, this is.
No,
full-
this is
almost
sort of-
final draft.
Right, we still have
Okay.
next week to decide if we want to change it.
Okay.
I have one specific noise that comes to mind. I didn't read it all yet, but
Mm-hmm.
fireworks when it's not a holiday late at night. Is there any specifics in there? I didn't read it yet, but I'm just wondering pertaining to that.
no, so that, what would probably fall under that, would be, I mean, specifically permitted activities,
And
would
it
be an
only-
exemption, which would be something like fireworks or something
Right.
where it's something that happens occasionally. But no, there's not anything in here prohibiting fireworks in the neighborhood or anything like that.
And it only comes to mind because last summer our neighborhood experienced
right,
it, so
yeah.
that's the only reason
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
Oh, I think,
It was.
I think the
constant.
Abingtons are,
I think it's Clarkson
And it-
experience.
And it wasn't
Unbelievable.
holiday.
You weren't the
That's
only
holiday.
neighborhood, and
It's
we
all
ended up with a
Clarkson
lot of.
experience.
Right.
it's the whole Abington area.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, it's, let's see, probably 2 days before 4th of July to 2 days after 4th of July,
Yeah.
New
That
Year's
doesn't
Eve,
bother me, but
New Year's
I'm
Day,
sure it does some.
evening.
But
I've
some
heard
of
of
this-
the Christmas time.
Right.
The problem is, the police responding, by the time they respond,
They're gone.
there's not somebody,
Yes.
Yeah.
how do they know?
All
And
you
they
see
can't
is
take
the smoke in
somebody's,
the air.
yeah, they can't say, well, you know, the neighbor says, well, I saw them. you
Yeah.
know.
So if it's a party, they could give a
Right.
warning kind of thing, right? And
Yeah.
how you were wording it, yes.
And some municipalities ban fireworks altogether. I'm
Yeah.
assuming Clark Summit is obviously not one of those municipalities.
Yeah.
No.
And even that's hard to enforce. Yeah, even that's hard.
Yeah. But that would definitely.
My
be dealt
daughter
with
got
separately.
married on the 4th of July and we had all kinds of fireworks. for the 4th of July wedding. Unfortunately, our
fireworks.
house burned in January.
Oh, geez.
And
Up with the
The
fireworks.
fire department said it was like being in Vietnam. All the fireworks were on.
Oh,
Jeez.
All my husband's ammunition were on. Yeah, so.
Only you, Jerry.
Summers didn't have any fireworks.
Yeah, we had a bunch of them over there from Florida, but, yeah, so we could have broken. Oh, gosh, but at any rate, yeah, and there's no permit you can get if you're gonna do fireworks or anything with the
Right.
fire department or something?
No.
Okay,
Well, we stay out of that.
yeah, I don't blame
That's,
you
that's,
there.
that's a very,
That's
that's
a
a very, very
liability
gray
for
area. Because
Yeah,
then
yeah.
it'd be up to the fire department to have to worry about insurance and liability. And
Exactly,
and-
right.
no.
right. If
That's-
it can be sold to the general public can put it on.
Yeah.
Exactly.
If it's not sold to the general public, you do need a permit through the state.
Through the
I think,
state,
To
Right.
put it on.
Yeah, actually, I think it comes from the ATF,
Maybe.
alcohol, tobacco,
I know
and
it's,
fireworks.
yeah, I know it's up there.
Yeah.
We have a neighbor who got that to put off fireworks
Yeah,
for a couple of years, but that
Yeah.
was different.
And I love fireworks. It didn't bother me at all.
Oh, right,
Some
yeah.
people,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
oh, yeah.
my poor dog does not like
Oh,
it, scared to
okay.
death.
My dog likes to have her belly rubbed when that's going on. She goes right after her legs. And most of you have seen my dog.
She's in your birthday picture.
She is, yes, she is. She's my co-pilot.
Okay, well, I think we have that covered pretty good, very clear, we know what direction we're kind of looking at. And we're also accommodating with the direction that our chief is interested in.
Yes, absolutely.
The next item is our engineers report on Linden Street.
Right, when last we met, I know, I believe it was Dave asked if we could have the DPW measure out the width of Linden Street as, you know, when we were talking about what could or shouldn't be done. So I did forward everybody via email, and I do have a copy here of what they found. I also have the engineer's input on it. So we do, it is as small as 18 feet in some areas. Engineers said ideal width would be 22 to 24, but 18 technically works. So we do have a legal road. So again, the last thing that we had from the engineer with regard to any action on that road was we have to have attempts at enforcement with the police and signage before, and proof that that's not working before we could do any obstacles such as the pad that was suggested by the residents.
Are we doing sentries and stuff like that?
Oh, yeah, that's also in here, and that was also forwarded to you guys from the chief. The speed sentry was put on one way for the week, and then they were putting it the other way for the second week. The reality is, there's not the speeding going on that people think. Now, the speed sentry was flashing the speed.
Speed limit.
I think that slows people down. So I suggested to Chris that he run it for a week without the flashing, you know, where it's just blank. You know, so people don't know that it's working, and see if that changes the numbers. So he'll be able to give us more information next week on that. But with it flashing, we're really not seeing, we're seeing one unusual car in a week's time, I believe it was, that really was,
Cooking.
yeah, and that was 45, it wasn't.
I think we're almost caught here between the rock and the hard place.
Yeah.
Because it's really bordering on iffy,
Mhm.
okay, with the 18 feet width. And I think whatever we try to do there, I think it's gonna be a real tough situation to do.
Yeah.
I think, you know, if we can have Chris keep a car down there on occasion, he's got the same issue over on Grove Street by the elementary school, on Haven Lane, Haven and Greenwood Avenue with the kids in the morning. I called them this morning. And the go time up there is 5 to 8 till 8:15. And he said he was on his way up there and he had a call. And Kevin was on his way up there and Kevin had a call at the high rise on Bedford Street. So that kept the two of them from going up there. And it was an absolute racetrack. I was sitting there at the kitchen table having breakfast and it was a racetrack. And I sent him a text. I said, the 500 is underway. And he said, I'm on my way up. And then he called me on the phone and he said, I got tied up. He said, I can't get up there. And I said, don't worry about it. I said, it's over with. And it was 18 minutes after 8. And honest to God, a quarter after 8, it stopped. And I said, there's the window, 5:00 to quarter after.
Right.
And if he's up there, they'll get them because they fly. I mean, they really do. And the same thing is true on Grove Street at the elementary school. You know, I mean, there's just certain, and when school gets out of dismissal up there, it's the same way coming down. I've seen buses come down around the corner. Honest to God, they gotta be doing 40 miles an hour, school buses. You know, because they take the shortcut. They don't want to get tied up in the traffic on Noble Road. And, you know, like I called the school a couple of times. Well, they hang up on you. You know, you get some, you know, I'm in charge of buses, one, making it, you know, you give them the bus number, the whole 9 yards, and the guy hangs up on you. Oh, what good is that? You know, but it's just one of those things. I don't know that there's a really easy way to do it. We can do the signage, no parking on the, I mean, how many times have we put no parking signs up down there?
Right.
You know, I mean, I think it's no parking from Grove down to whatever the cross street is, all the way down the end.
Park.
Park,
There-
yeah, I think,
Yeah.
there might be parking down the further end on one side of the
I
road,
think
but
I think there's some down on the
Yeah.
road, but it's really, there's shoulder room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
for
mean,
them
it's
to park.
very limited because
Right.
if there's a football game going on, you know, they really do have to get down there and not just ticket, but have the cars towed out of there. Because then the people are gonna know that we're serious. Don't put tickets on. Tickets, what are the tickets? $5? Tickets don't mean 5. You know, tow the cars, you know, get 3 records down there and just leave them sit. You know, like give the guy $50 to sit there for an hour. You know, I mean, that'll get the point across. If you're gonna park there, don't worry about it. We're towing it.
So would we like to remove this from the agenda for next week and just wait and see what
I would
the
think
police
so, yeah.
offer? That's what I thought too. Okay, if we find that the speed sentry is different when it's turned off, or there's a continuing issue despite the signage, then we can readdress this.
Exactly.
So
Okay.
kind of the data right now.
The next item on our agenda is our zoning hearing board alternate. We have Doug Craig and Bob Cranick.
Do we have an opening? I didn't know we had an opening.
No, I don't know where this came from.
Oh.
Honestly, we can have 2 alternates.
Right,
We do have one.
right.
The meeting this month, we needed that one, and with that one, we had two people. So it constituted quorum, thank God, but we barely made that quorum. So it's nice to have 2 alternates, but we weren't soliciting for an alternate, and out of the blue, 2 different people came to me and said they'd like to be considered.
Well,
Um,
in all honesty, if we put anybody on, I'd like to see Bob Granick go on because he was
He's already
previously
been
on it.
on it.
I mean, if there's anybody that knows zoning, it's Bob Granick.
Yeah.
You know?
Bob Cranick's interest actually was generated because his grandson just got a job down in Lansdale, I think,
Yes.
and he's going to be in charge of zoning
Oh,
for the community.
Uh-huh.
So Bob thought it would be great to get back into it, but Bob had 20-some years
Oh,
experience. He's Scranton with us. He's
Yes.
a wealth of knowledge.
Yep.
So, you know, I don't have any issues, and we have had 2 alternates in the past, so I don't know.
well, I'd like to see his name move forward as well as Doug Craig Jr.'s.
And we can we can make
Yeah.
a vote next week.
And
Okay.
So we
And
could
actually-
keep both of them in Virginia, Doug Craig and Bob Cranick?
I've never
Or just-
had 3 alternates on there before, and I don't know that we need 3. It's
was
a-
there anything that says we can't have 3?
No, I don't think
Well,
so.
why don't we stick the 3 of them
I
on,
would-
or
I
the
would think so, too.
three of them on there?
If
And
something
then when an
happened
opening
to
does
one.
come, we can elevate whichever.
Right. The alternates
You know?
do not vote unless
There's,
there's
a
they're
need.
needed because somebody
Right.
else
Yeah.
doesn't
Or-
make it.
yeah.
But they're welcome to participate in the meeting, so.
Okay.
Yeah,
And that-
okay,
that
well,
would give
we'll-
Doug
we'll-
Craig some
Now,
experience.
We'll talk next week.
will there be any interference because Doug is a member of our DPW?
I'll double check that, but I do not believe that
Okay.
there's an issue
Okay.
with
'Cause
that.
I wouldn't want him to be on there as an alternate and then something come up down the
He
road.
may not.
And he gets singled out because he's a member of the DPW.
I will double check that,
Okay.
but I don't think it's an issue. If he wanted to run for council, he couldn't be on the DPW and run for council, but I don't
Because he
think
pays
it's
his
this
own
kind of,
salary.
yeah,
Yeah,
basically.
okay.
But I think he can, an alternate isn't paid, so I think he can do it. But well,
But the zoning hearing board's a little bit different, because they're quasi judicial.
right,
Right.
And they have their own solicitor.
right.
All right, thank you.
The next item is a request from Joseph Riley.
Yeah, I vote no on that. We've never had an ounce of cooperation out of that person.
This is the house where there's a.
Yeah.
Multiple units, but there's only, he's saying like only
Yeah.
one person lives
And
in the
we-
multiple units.
Turned his
But
water
there's
off for
2 rentals
years.
and an office.
Yeah,
Okay.
So why he's not renting them, that's his decision, his discretion. Just like the houses that we make pay for their
Exactly.
bill, even though they're not, there's nobody living in them, the water's turned off. It's kind of the same thing. If we're making other people, if we're
Yep.
making the residents that go to Florida pay while they're
Yep.
gone.
And the reason why we were able to do it last time was when people they were taking down walls and like combining units and stuff like that.
When we change it, it's because the house is converted to a single family.
yeah.
If this was converted, but it's not, it's still 2 apartments in an
Yeah.
office.
And I.
Just
don't
because
trust
it's
him.
not being used doesn't mean,
No.
right?
Yeah,
Okay,
he's
so
not, he's not a trustworthy person.
we'll vote on that next week.
Okay.
Okay.
The next is the
What, are we gonna start smoking dope now? at the meetings or what?
We
Nope, nope.
received this request from the Pennsylvania State Association of Boroughs. It's entirely up to you guys whether you want to pursue this or not. But they have asked us to have council decide if you want to.
Just not include my personal opinions. I don't think we want to be out in front on this. I mean, it's still
No, I don't
against the
think so.
federal law.
So we'll just
we've never.
not
he-
put this on the agenda for next week.
What he said.
Gotcha,
I'll third it.
gotcha.
It's a
Okay,
joke.
I will take it off the agenda and
I said to my wife today, we were going up the Carbondale Highway today, and we went by Suburban Casuals. And I said, wow, how about that? I said, Warren Rinker's gotta be rolling over out there in Glenburn, you know, I said, he sold his place for $1 million. And now it's gonna be a smoke joint now. You're gonna be able to buy all the weed you want. I said, who'd have ever thought that? We're gonna be the weed capital of the world, you know? I said, every poor slob that's in jail on a marijuana charge should be out of jail immediately, if not sooner.
Yeah.
This is such a joke.
whether or not, my opinion, whether or not we legalize marijuana, I think that a lot of consideration needs to be done to how it would be enforced.
Yeah.
Do they know we know how to tell if a driver is intoxicated?
Yeah.
How do we know if the driver, is there a legal limit for marijuana? And
Well, you
don't
have
we
to-
need to decide that
you have
before
to give
we
them a
make
blood
it
test.
legal?
There's a blood test for that too.
But so is it like yes or no? If it's legal to smoke,
Yeah.
what is the line where he can't drive?
Well, when you stick your head in the car and the smoke and you get stoned when you pull your head out, then you know.
I get that.
Driver's
I'm
under
just
the
talking
influence.
about for enforcement.
Oh, I know.
I feel like,
It's-
I
it's
feel like the decision is coming before we know how we're gonna deal with it.
Exactly.
That's the only
So
answer.
what if we don't get involved in it, we don't have to.
That's correct.
go any
I agree.
further with it.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay.
so we have a review of the agenda for next week.
Well, it's there. I'll make the changes that we decided on.
Can I have a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. With the agenda, there is one thing. I was talking to Jerry. We needed to decide like how we were gonna handle the vote for the mayor, whether we wanted to do that first thing. My suggestion was to just hold it until, either we invite every mayoral candidate to come to participate in the vote, or we just hold it in the regular meeting. So I think Jerry and I decided we're just gonna leave it in the new business section of the meeting.
Yeah.
If that's okay.
Do it
with everyone
last.
else.
Well, that way, if there's anything that comes up that, we really need to depend on Harry's vote for it, he can vote as a sitting councilman.
Right, if Harry is voted,
Yeah.
if we vote Harry as mayor,
Yeah.
and we do that at the beginning of the meeting,
Then he can't vote.
vote. for
That's
the
correct.
mayor.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So
If
if Harry's gonna be there,
We need to
and the
vote
same thing, if
Yeah.
we invite, if we vote for one of the other
We wait
gentlemen
till
that
the end.
applied,
Yeah.
then they wouldn't be here to be sworn in. So we
Yeah.
need to schedule that. So let's decide who's going to be mayor and then schedule the swearing in. And
Well, you need to have the magistrate here too.
no, it doesn't have to be Jerry can swear him in legally.
Oh.
Jerry can swear
Oh,
him.
Oh,
But a
okay.
magistrate is, we
Well,
normally do
you're still
that.
gonna be the acting mayor at the time.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So
And we still have the 30 days, right? We're still in that.
we got till.
Next
till-
week is still within the 30 days.
Thursday's D-Day.
Right.
It's gotta be done
So
before
it's,
Thursday.
we've got to decide next
Yeah.
week, yes.
So
Okay,
could Jerry swear the winner in, or a
yes,
magistrate has to? Oh,
No,
okay, so
Jerry can.
Okay, I didn't know
Yeah.
that one, okay.
yeah.
I was thinking magistrate because normally a magistrate would do it,
Right.
Right.
or a judge.
And it's,
Same thing.
that's normally because it's, it's so official. It's
Yeah.
nice to have somebody of importance do it
Exactly.
and get the photographs and so forth for it.
Yeah.
Jerry's-
But
But
it's
Harry's
not
not,
an
Harry's not
obligation.
important.
Jerry's
Harry's not
very
important.
Very important.
Saying the mayor,
You're in trouble
isn't
for
doing
that.
weddings, and I'm thinking,
Yeah.
I've got a week now that I can do some weddings, maybe.
You could
Yeah.
have your son
Well, let me-
wait.
Jerry,
Put some
let me
fireworks.
just tell you, Russell Strickland, who's the president judge in Wyoming County, all the weddings that he does, whatever he charges for the weddings, he donates that all back to the Clarkson Fire Company.
Does he?
Yeah, and he does
Oh, how
probably,
nice.
he does probably 12 weddings a month up there. And whatever
Oh,
money he collects, it goes right to the Clarkson
Wow.
Fire Company.
Very
Yeah.
nice.
It's nice of them to do it.
And he did that when he was the magistrate up in Factoryville.
That's
Any wedding that he performed, he gave it all to the fire.
Nice.
Yeah, so like, that was nice community service, you know?
It's certainly, that's.
She's gonna look for people to marry.
Very.
So, are we done? Can I turn off the
Motion
recording?
to
I move that we discontinue the meeting.
All right.
Tell Kevin he's missing out on it.
Oh.
Tell him, oh, where is he?
Brooke, it was really nice to meet